call the Public Works and Planning Committee to order. Call on Mr. Stevens. Prayer.
Let's pray together. Our Lord and Father in heaven, we're so thankful for this evening, and Father, we're thankful that we can all come together tonight and to serve our community. Father, again, we're so thankful for this great county and the people that we serve. Lord, we pray for peace and understanding in our county and our world with all the violence and hate that's out there. Father, help us to be good examples and servants and to all strive to make our community better, even in spite of all these negative things. Lord, we always want to do your will and to serve our fellow citizens with honor and integrity. We pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Approve the minutes. Approve the minutes.
Approve minutes last week.
Motion to approve.
Second.
One second.
Motion made and second, approve minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, first up, building code.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we have January's Building Codes Department report on your iPad and also a paper copy. The Building Codes issued 195 permits for January. We took in $47,240 for building permits, $7,575 for plumbing permits, $1,115 for gas permits, a total of $55,930. On the back of the report shows our comparison to last January was 34 houses issued, and this year 47 houses permits was issued. 141 total permits last year for 195 this year, so up 13 houses and 54 total permits. Our next report is our property standard inspections. We performed 122 inspections for January. We had 18 new cases recorded in January. And our development tax collections, Building Codes Department took in $127,500. Planning Department took in $26,250 for a total of $153,750. Our report for our development tax runs July to June, so we're our total for that running time period is $1,968,000 in collections. A breakdown of where that monies came from and which jurisdiction is below that, with Murfreesboro City at $93,000 was the largest development area for January. And that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody got any questions on the report?
Make a motion to accept the report.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you. Thank you.
Solid waste.
Go first.
We were going to.
Okay. We'll move on down then to don't have no report on the highway planning.
Yes, sir. Evening, Commissioners. Dropped half my report. Everybody's doing well tonight. Just want to start off with the available lot inventory that we have. If you turn to the back of the second full page, you'll see our total available lot inventory as of last month, end of last month, was 785. This time last year was at 969. So you see we are still ahead of where we were. There were a few flats that were reported. They were smaller flats, so that's why you're not really seeing a significant change. in the available lot inventory. When you see a larger plat come through, it's got 30, 40 lots. Sometimes you'll see a little change in that. But we're still seeing pretty good activity, and that trend is still trending down as far as the numbers that we're seeing in the available lots. So that's good news. So I would expect as that number decreases that we'll start seeing more and more plats coming in, new development coming into our office. But that just kind of gives you an idea of where we are right now. That last page just shows you some of the ones that are in the pipeline right now. Some of them are remaining, like Creekspin, for instance. That just shows you the remaining lots that are out there, 183. Really they had a preliminary plan that was approved several years back. There's been a few subdivisions that have been approved off of that as far as final plats, different sections, but that's what's remaining in those different phases, I should say. That's what's remaining. But that just kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking at right now. If there's no questions with that, I'll go ahead and move on to the rezoning report. We've had kind of a light agenda the last few months, and it looks like we're going to have a little heavier agenda this month. We've actually got 4 rezoning cases for you to consider this month. The first is for several properties along Ocala Road. Just so for the commissioners who may not know where that is, Ocala Road's a road that runs parallel to 840 right off of Almaville Road. That road was put in there as part of the 840 State Route 840 project to allow those properties there to have access. They cut off access to a lot of properties when they put that road through. So that's where Ocala Road is located. This development that we're looking at this month was originally approved back in October 2007 under a different name and development plan. It was called Cedar Brook. The original development contained about 434 lots. It was a mixture of single-family detached and attached structures like townhomes. That was approved, however, nothing ever happened with it. No plats were ever submitted, no development ever occurred, so that's long expired. So developers basically starting over from scratch. This application was originally considered by the Planning Commission in November of last year. It was deferred a couple of different times. There were several questions about the size of the lots, the traffic issues, improvements, those kind of things. Ultimately, the commission did look at this this past month. We had a pretty lengthy meeting, actually. Most of the discussion that was had was about the fire protection in the area. Ultimately, what was decided at the Planning Commission was with the water improvements that were going to have to be made, that should give them the ability to put fire hydrants out there for about 400 lots. After those 400 lots are developed, they're looking at a total of about 552. The remainder would have to be developed with residential sprinkler systems consistent with our subdivision regulations. There was a lot of discussion about that. Ultimately, that was what the decision that was come to by the board. That motion was approved for recommendation of approval for a unanimous vote. Yes, sir.
So that's what the 12-inch line will support, is 400 or something?
Yeah, roughly, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I mean, they're going to have to do the extension down Ocala regardless of what direction they went. If they were going to go all sprinklers or all fire hydrants, if they were going to do all fire hydrants, they would have to make some additional off-site improvements. But the 12-inch line going down Ocala is going to have it regardless. So now, as things change in that area, maybe more development happens over time. By the time they get to lot 401 or wherever that number ends up being ultimately, they may have the ability to put more hydrants out there. It just depends on what happens out in the area. But this is a long-term type development. You know, that many lots, over 500 lots. You're talking a several-year time frame for build out. So we'll just kind of watch it as it goes. So that's the kind of the background on that. The second application is by Dan and Christy Allen. It's located at 509 John R. Rice Boulevard, which is very close to the city limits of Murfreesboro. This property it's located at the intersection of Wickham Court and John R. Rice. They received a special exception by the Board of Zoning Appeals back in June of last year to operate a beauty salon as a home-based business. They've made a number of improvements to the lot, added some parking area and a few things like that, interior renovations as well. However, they wanted to operate now as a full-time salon. In other words, they wouldn't have to live on the property. With a home-based business, you have to live there. They don't want to have to live there, so they want to open it up as a full-time salon. They came to staff with that request a few months ago while they were kind of exploring their options. At that time, meeting with myself and my assistant director, we pretty much made it clear to them that we didn't think that this was an appropriate area for any kind of commercial zoning. It's pretty much surrounded by residences. It's not far from commercial zoning on either side. If you go toward the city, going down John R. Rice toward Old Fort Parkway, of course you run into the Lang Agri-Park structure, campus rather I should say. which is a planned development in the city of Murfreesboro. And if you go further the other way toward the interstate, of course, there's more commercial zoning when you get closer there, but really that area in the middle is all established residential areas, residential neighborhoods. So we told them that we just didn't feel that this was something we could support or recommend approval for. We let them know that on the front end, said, you know, it's your prerogative. If you wish to pursue the rezoning, you certainly can do that. They had chosen to do so. However, after the public hearing, there were several people who spoke in opposition to that request. The Planning Commission did recommend denial of that application by unanimous vote. The third application is for some property along Lebanon Highway, US 231. These are all on the east side. Portions of parcel 8, which is a larger parcel on that larger tract really on that property, is already zoned for commercial purposes. However, they've got some existing, there's a plumbing business there. Been there for a number of years. It's they've had site plans and everything's, as far as the development is legitimate with it. However, they are starting to expand in some of the areas that aren't zoned commercial. So we discussed with the applicant the need for them to go ahead and zone those areas that they are using commercially as commercial zoning. There's also an existing house on the property. That's the other parcel in question. They're just wanting to go ahead and rezone that. They think in the future they'll probably expand into that property. The house is still there. They'll still be able to live in it. It'll just be a non-conforming structure. But really, there's no new development associated with this rezoning. It really is just him trying to zone the areas that over time have been started to be used in commercial, in a commercial manner. They're just going ahead and zoning those areas for commercial, as well as the house site for potential future use. Again, not much discussion at the Planning Commission on this particular request. The Commission did ultimately recommend approval of it by unanimous vote. The last application that we have coming before you next week is for some property along Burnt Knob Road. It's property that's immediately adjacent to the Rogers Group Quarry. You can see by looking at the maps, I mean, it's literally right in front of it as it fronts on Burnt Knob Road. The parcel next to it's actually the access point to the quarry. We've received several phone calls from different properties in this area about the potential for rezoning some of these areas for possible commercial use. Right now they are zoned residential. The applicant's looking to rezone this property for use as a mini warehouse type facility. Staff was neutral on this application, not so much because of the fact that of the commercial use of the property, but for the zone that they were asking for. Now, light industrial will allow mini warehouses by right. They won't have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Typically, when the Planning Commission and the County Commission rezones parcels anticipating that kind of use, they're looking at something like commercial services, maybe commercial general, which will allow the use, but they have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Kind of gives them an extra layer to have to go through. Ultimately, considering the location of this with the quarry immediately behind it, I think the Planning Commission was more comfortable with the light industrial for this particular property. I don't think this property will ever be used in a residential manner. So with that, I didn't have any real issues with light industrial. I just thought that was something the Commission would want to have some say in before we made a recommendation one way or the other. But ultimately, the Planning Commission did recommend approval. It wasn't unanimous. There was one that was in opposition, but it was 9-1, as I recall, the vote to recommend approval. So those are the 4 applications that we have coming to you next week. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
The property that Mr. Bowers is requesting, does that face 231?
Yes, sir. Look at the map in your agenda. Flip over here. Probably easier looking. You've got, this next one may actually be better. The aerial photo actually shows it a little bit better. Portion of the property, he's got existing commercial zoning right in here. Mm-hmm. This is a portion he's asking to have rezoned here, this area here, and then this is where the house is. So these are really the areas that he's using more commercially, and then again the house. So this area faces 231. This is a little further back, and then this is off that private drive right across from the existing building right there. So I guess to answer your question is yes and no. Portions of it are, portions aren't.
Does any of it come out to the Jefferson Pike?
No, sir.
Okay, no.
Not that far.
On the Allen property, just curious if they had been awarded approval, it would have been permanently zoned, that new zoning.
Yes, sir.
The
Well, unless you wanted to, of course, you could always take
rezone
action to
back.
change it. Yeah, right.
The the special exception was just temporary.
Well, special exceptions typically run with the land. The Board of Zoning Appeals does sometime approve them subject to expiring if the property's transferred. I don't believe they did that in this case. So if somebody, let's just say they wanted to sell the property and somebody else wanted to buy it and use it under the same parameters as they were approved for, they could do that. Now, if they wanted to do something different or more intense, they would have to go back through. Now, they don't have to do anything. If somebody could buy the property and just say, oh, gee, they have this here, well, that's nice, I don't want to do that, and fine. It's not a big deal.
No action.
Right, so nothing, nothing nasty, but it does stay with the land. It doesn't stay with the owners typically.
On the one on Burton Knob, the applicant did call me and we discussed some of the issues there. I kind of feel this fits fairly well with the area. It's right adjacent, physically joins the rock quarry, so I don't see it developing anyway into any kind of residential development. And also with the proposed, temp storage type of things, you're not going to have a consistent traffic going in and out. It's going to be very random traffic. So
Yes, sir.
I feel it's a fairly compatible usage with that type of.
If there's no other question about the zoning, I did have one other thing I wanted to bring up. This is something, and Mr. Kush, is something you've been familiar with as well. We've had a couple of presentations from the Williamson County Planning Director, his name is Mike Madison, and a gentleman by the name of Steve Talknell. Williamson County uses a management strategy for land in their rural areas called traffic sheds. Basically what they are, I mean, it's fairly complex, but kind of breaking it down to its base. The road conditions in an area help dictate how much development can happen in that area. In other words, if you've got a 5-lane highway, you're probably going to be able to get a lot more lots on land than you would if you were on like a single-lane road. Essentially what traffic sheds attempt to do is to identify those areas in a rural area predominantly that are more suitable for development and others that aren't. You can use it, kind of equate it to the same thing with like water or something like that. Areas that have more water are more ripe for development than areas that don't. Same way with roads. Areas that have better road infrastructure are probably better able to handle new growth in areas that don't. They've had two different presentations to our Planning Commission. One was more of a training session, and the other was more in the we actually invited developers and engineers and everything to the meeting to have them kind of take a look at it. The Planning Commission and myself as staff were interested in pursuing the idea a little further to get an idea, is this something that might work in Rutherford County? The consultant, Mr. Talknell, he's the one that created the analysis and the sheds for Williamson County. He has presented us with a small proposal that would look at the feasibility for something like this in Rutherford County. I want to be clear that this isn't anything that would create these sheds or any of the regulations that go along with that. This really is just looking, is this feasible for Rutherford County? If you have a question.
Yeah, so I'm assuming from this, taking this approach, that we would tend not to want to develop along a road with a 20-foot right-of-way and a 4-inch water line.
Well, I mean, I guess you could say that. But what it does, and this is something I like about the approach, is that it gives the developer options. It says, okay,
unless they improve the road.
Right. If you make these improvements, you can have more lots. If you don't make improvements, you can still build, you can still develop, just maybe not as many lots as you could have originally. So again, what Mr. Talknell has proposed is that he do what's called basically a conceptual framework, just to see, would this work in Rutherford County? If it would, where would it work? And then from there, we could choose to pursue it or not pursue it. Now, there is a fee associated with this. Mayor Burgess has some discretionary funding that he has, and he's allowed the planning department to utilize that for this study. So no new money is being requested for this or anything like that. Mayor Burgess is comfortable with the request. He's not here to speak for him, but with that, I just wanted to really, our chairman of the Planning Commission, Mr. Phillips, Jeff Phillips, asked that we just to let you all know that we're going to go down this road just to see, again, if it would work. And again, just so everyone knows, even if he comes back with it, at that point, we would have to decide, do we want to move forward with this? If so, we'd have to bid out the proposal for that. So I just wanted to let you all know that that's basically what we're looking at doing. And Mr. Kush, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Done very well.
Very good.
What's the fee for this preliminary?
It's a little bit under $10,000, about $9,700. And again, no new money is being requested. This is out of the mayor's discretionary budget that he has. Line item.
To Mr. Talknell?
Mr. Talknell, yes, sir. There'll be a contract signed with it and everything, but it won't exceed that amount.
Do we own the information once we?
Most of the information that he'll be using actually does come from us, yes, sir.
And when he puts it in a format to present it as a traffic shed item, do we still own the?
It would still be our data, yes, sir. I mean, all that data would still be ours.
And the resulting imagery, would that be ours as well if we wanted?
I would have to look at the, I would imagine, since it's our imagery to begin with. So, yes, sir. But he'll have to sign agreements to use it from our end as well. If there's stuff from our end, from our GIS files and things that he wants to use or needs to use, he would have to request permission, and we've got documentation for that he would have to sign to do that.
Anybody got anything else you want to ask Doug?
I'll move that we approve the report.
I'll second.
Anybody got any more questions? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Doug.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Captain Nolan.
Good evening.
Solid waste and landfill.
How are y'all?
Good. Doing fine.
First page of the report is the landfill report that you normally see, but you also see a few little red lines on it. If they did it in color, they should be in red.
They are red and bracketed.
Mm-hmm. Those are negative numbers,
What I
and
was afraid
that
of.
represents the amount of stuff that we give away. And if you total that up for the last couple of months, if you look at the second page, it's a breakdown of the month of December and the month of January. A little over $50,000 a year we give away. If we quit giving away stuff at the landfill, we could make it break even. It wouldn't need any property tax dollars or anything else.
Your 50,000 is the red numbers on page 1 and all the numbers on page 2.
Well,
Or
the
the
totals per month. So like the month of December was almost $11,000. January was $3,500.
Okay.
So that's going to vary from month to month depending on what those entities are doing.
And what was the 55,000? What's the yearly?
Roughly $55,000 a year.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sure you are, but you are gonna elaborate on how we're giving it away? Are you just gonna tell us?
Okay.
Curious minds want to know.
The county commission years and years ago did a resolution to where the town of Smyrna, the city of Laverne, and the city of Murfreesboro can tear down up to 3 homes per month and bring them to the landfill at no charge. Smyrna very rarely ever does that. Laverne, to the best of my knowledge, has never done that. City of Murfreesboro does that when they're doing some of their urban development stuff. And also along with that, like the city street sweepers a while back was having problems with the way they were doing things here in town, so they bring those out. There's some other things that the city brings, Parks and Recreation brings some stuff. Smyrna and Laverne both bring some stuff occasionally. So it's not a huge amount of dollars, but it's enough that the intake from the scale versus the cost to operate, we could just about break even, or actually maybe even to turn a little bit of a profit to go back into the fund balance to get ready for the future. That's just something that the mayor and I have been looking at, so there's no decision to be made tonight. I just wanted to share that with you. So coming in this coming budget season, that may be part of our budgeting process.
The Murfreesboro City tipping waived 120 tons. What are they? Is that their demo?
It depends on what they're doing. It could be demo. Some of it's going to be, just different things they've got
So
going
your
on.
sweeper and all is combined into that Murfreesboro City tipping.
Well, Murfreesboro, if you look on that second page, Murfreesboro sweeper, and then you got Murfreesboro schools, and then Murfreesboro street department. Those are broken out separately.
Okay. I'm just trying to see what this.
But since we don't track it
$3,500
100% accurate because we're not charging
Yeah.
for it,
Yeah.
we just make sure we make a ticket and keep up with weight, but there's no dollars affected. And then if you look down on the prepaid accounts, we don't have a billing system. So if you want to come to our landfill, you have to pay as you go. But we do have a few large private entities that come to us, and the way those large corporations are is they won't write you a check every day. So what they do is they'll write us a $10,000 check at the first of the month, and we'll run a declining balance on it until they almost run out, and then they'll send us another one. So when you see the prepaid accounts, like this one's $22,000, is how much we took in last month for those prepaid accounts. That's the reason if you look at the total revenue of 61,000 versus the tonnage at 39, there's your difference. We took in some money that we haven't actually sold to airspace yet. We're just sitting on the money. In the past, we had a lot of people that used us like a bank. They'd come out there and dispose of stuff. You'd send them a bill, and a month later, they'd wait a month or two before they'd pay you. So we're not a bank anymore.
Are any of these under a contract, or is this just a handshake deal, or what?
The county commission voted, it was a resolution.
Okay, what's the resolution?
And the reason we need to start this discussion is I've already talked with the solid waste director for the city of Murfreesboro, let him know we're going to have this discussion. We're getting ready to start our budget season, already started actually. They're doing the same thing. So if we're going to do a change, then they need to know so they can budget for it as well.
Do you recall the motive, Matt? To
Just
have a
because-
resolution?
Good neighbor
Good
policy.
neighbor.
Yeah, just because we're good folks. Any more questions on that? Ready to go to the convenience center side? Convenience center side of the operation stays busy all the time, and that's the largest budget within our 5 budgets.
Solid waste report?
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you now.
Let me give you some numbers to start with. In calendar year 2013, the Rutherford County Solid Waste Department averaged hauling 14 tons of trash per hour, 8 hours per day, 365 days a year. That's in 2013. 2014, 15 2/3 tons of trash per hour, 8 hours a day, 365 days a year. So we've increased by a ton in 2/3 from year to year. And that's probably your population growth. More than likely, that's where that's coming from.
That's what we're hauling.
That's what we haul out of my department. That's the schools and the convenience centers. If we were to have paid for our trash at Middle Point last year at a rate of $30 a ton, which would be our fee, we would have paid a little more than $93,000. The month of December, which Colonel Davidson was here for me in January, December would have been $114,000. Of course, that's our busiest month. But we've got some large issues to face, and we're trying to figure out ways to tackle those. So Mimi literally rode in the truck for a week, literally got out of the truck at each stop and looked in every dumpster in this county every day for 5 days. So we did a waste audit. And what she was looking for was how full is that dumpster and what's actually in it. Trash and recycle combined. So you remember when we were on the Laverne tour, I made a comment of how many students generate a yard of trash. Well, in the Rutherford County elementary school system, the average is 25.7 students generate a yard. That's roughly a classroom. Every classroom generates a yard of trash.
In what period of time?
In a day, a week?
A week. Now, when you take the 23 elementary schools for Rutherford County, 3 of them are average. 3 of them's right in that 25 range. 10 are above, and 10 are below. The one that's doing the least well with their trash is 19.3 students per yard, or per yard. The one that's doing the best is 33. So there's a large gap in there. There's a large difference.
Why?
Elementary school, to me, should be an elementary school. They should generate roughly the same amount. You're going to have a few differences, but not that vast difference. So if you move on to the middle schools, there's 10 middle schools in the county. When we started doing the average, we had to take one of them out of the average, because that one is 50 kids per per yard. And the one that's doing the least well is 25.7. But that one doing 50 was so much higher than everybody else, we took them out of the average just to keep from skewing the numbers. So the average without that one school is 31 kids per yard of trash in the middle school. When you get to the high school system, we had to throw 3 of them out of the average. One of them, 2 kids generated a yard of trash. 2. The one that's doing the best out of the high school is 28.9 kids per yard. The average is 23 when you throw those bottom 3 out. Now, the reason you have to throw those bottom 3 out, there's 2 of them's alternative schools and 1 of them's Holloway. So their student population, the way that the school system is set up, they should be able to do better than what they are. But that's not a real fair number. Daniel McKee during this study didn't have 28 students, but they generated 14 yards of trash that week. And when you move to the city schools, which they have 13, the Mitchell Nelson campus is considered one campus, but its week services it at 2. So that one's going to mess up the numbers a little bit, but we had to figure it as 1. And what we did was during that week is took the actual population of the schools, but we had to combine those together. So this one's actually figured as if it were 12 schools instead of 13. The city school average is 22.3. Highest is 34.7. The lowest is 11.9. Why is so much difference? Also, if you look at the MIMI survey, roughly half the schools in this county are serviced on Monday, the other half are serviced on Tuesday. Your first service day of the week, they have more garbage than the rest of the week, most often. Public dumping, outside dumping. So if we could get the school systems to control and only have on-campus trash, these numbers would get much better right off the bat. The other thing this survey showed us, because it cost us through our calculations $12 and a nickel to dump a container, whether it's full or not, a lot of them have way too much service. And we need to reduce their service. And by controlling the level of service, we may be able to get them to do better on their project if they don't have enough space to do with it.
Or you're going to be picking up trash off the parking lot.
Mm-hmm. But that's some of the stuff that we've been trying to figure out how to take a big bite out of this apple. And that's one bite that we think we can take. Now, we've got a meeting with some people at the school board next week about some other things, but we're going to mention this. The schools seem to be really, really competitive. So if that Excel spreadsheet that Mimi set up were to go out to all the principals, I'd say you'd see some improvement pretty quickly.
What were your thoughts about the dramatic differences? Could you suggest an answer? I know you'd be guessing, you don't know, but
I think the first schools were closed 2 weeks for Christmas. And we normally run trash 5 days a week. Some of the schools get 2 days a week. Some of them get 3 days a week service. So the week before Christmas, or the week of Christmas actually, we ran the Monday route regular, the Tuesday route regular for trash, and we didn't run any more trash for the rest of the 2 weeks. The following week, the week of New Year, we ran the recycle route on Monday and Tuesday, knowing that the general public was going to fill up those dumpsters. So we left the recycle full as long as we could to keep them from contaminating it, and then went ahead and emptied the trash to see what happened. When we came back the week school started, most all the trash cans were full of Christmas trees and sofas and televisions and all that kind of stuff.
did the discrepancy in the number of students that generate a cubic yard from 50 to, like you said, 11 or whatever, what do you think that, is that because the amount of debris is skewed by the public? You don't
A lot of it's going to be public use. That's going to be part of it. And then the other thing that when I've spoken with principals, I taught at Smyrna High School. My classroom was at the very end of the hallway, and every night there was a lady that came through the hallway pushing a rolling cart with a mop bucket, a mop and a broom and a dustpan, you know, all of her cleaning supplies, pulling a 30-gallon trash can on wheels. She'd go in the classroom, clean up, pick up the trash, put it in the trash can, move on to the next one. Lady did a very good job. That was before we started recycling. And I would be willing to wager that that lady's still doing the same thing today. Well, when she goes in that classroom, if the teacher's got a recycle container and a trash container, what's happening to it now?
Probably get mixed.
It's all getting thrown away. I think that's one of the first things that they look at. Public dumping, and they look at their operations, see how they're doing it. I think there's some issues there that they need to look at. Now, hopefully I'm wrong, but I kind of doubt it. But the reason we're trying to make the big push, and we also looked at the county buildings we service, and there's several of those that we can reduce their service.
If you think that's going on, why don't you ask who's in charge and whether it is not, is that school?
We don't have any teeth to make them do anything.
I know you don't have no teeth, but you doubt.
And we'll probably ask that question.
Cause she's just doing what she thinks she don't want to do.
But that's got to go down to the individual school level. What we had looked at was possibility, and we discussed it a little bit, you know, having the schools pay for the trash service.
Yeah.
Well, what's probably going to happen, if they paid me for my service, it'd be somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 a year. So more than likely, you take roughly $500,000 out of my budget, put in the school budget for them to pay me back throughout the year. They've got the money. Nothing's going to change. So that approach won't get us the results that we're looking for.
Some of the school entrances are closed at night. Did you see any difference in those, the ones that were closed and those
Some
that
of them you
weren't?
do. When you look at the survey, what she did is you got the school name, the population for that week, and then the dates of service. And then beside the dates of service is how many containers should they have. If they've got 4 or 8 yards for trash, how full was each one of them? So if there was 3 of them full, 1 of them half, it'd be 1, 1, 1 and a half. And then we calculate the yards for there versus their total yardage. Those that have some locks on them, they didn't have the spikes at the first of the week like the rest of them.
So you think it's coming off the street or it's following them to work?
Both.
So some of it could be stopped easily.
And one way to stop it would be lock the containers.
And it'd be piled around outside and your drivers have to get out and clean it up.
We don't clean it up. We're there to service what's in the container, not know what's beside it.
How much are locks and how many of the containers?
There's
are
276 dumpsters in this county that we service, and we service them 663 times a week.
Say
Some
that
of
again,
them-
300
times.
There's 276 dumpsters
Right.
that we service 663 times a week.
Oh.
So you've got some containers that go once a week, you've got some containers that go 3 times a week.
Does that include your recycling containers?
We did a thought process on it to buy the lock bars and to have them shipped here and to have them mounted by the contractor that works on our containers for us would cost us a little over $30,000. And I was willing to do that last year, but nobody wanted their containers locked. So I'm not willing to do it this year.
I'm afraid the locks would be tossed pretty quickly.
Well, what I want to do with it is walk up, say, Principal Dodd, your containers are locked. We've got locks on them for you. Here's your key. You make as many copies as you wish. But when we come to look in that dumpster, whatever's in it is your responsibility because you allowed it to be there. Nobody wanted that responsibility.
I mean, if we buy the locks and do it that way, are they going to have a choice in the matter?
Make it
Well,
mandatory.
Mimi worked with them 2 years ago, and almost every dumpster in this county had a lock on it then. How many's got locked on it today, Mimi?
In fall of 2013, we had locks put on every single stream recycling dumpster. Within 9 months, 2/3 of them, they had taken their locks off. And I've sent repeated emails requesting them to put the locks back on, return the locks back on there, and it hasn't been done.
The
Thank you
reason-
for finally letting me talk.
the reason I'm pushing for this so hard is we're trying to get our residents to recycle. So it's one of those things, it's not do as I say, do as I do. We're not doing it, so we can't expect them to do it very well. We've got to lead that charge.
I'm still trying to wrap my mind around why we wouldn't lock those containers. And then just say we're not gonna, take the lock off, we're not gonna service the trash.
I've had that thought for a long time, but I kind of like my job and I like to keep it, so that doesn't work out very well.
So whomever mandates the locks, and then the lock, through just convenience for the principal, or lack of inconvenience, they lose the lock. Then are we suggesting that we enforce some kind of penalty for losing the lock? And how far are we willing to go? That's the question.
Right. And see, what we were going to do is, there's manufactured lock bars. There's a bar, there's two different styles, but you attach it to the top of the container, and there's a bar that goes across the lid, and there's a lock to keep it locked. So when you walk up there, you can't flip that bar back. It won't let you get in there, so you've got to unlock it. But it's also designed to where when our truck picks it up, it tilts it at a 45-degree angle, it automatically unlocks. So the driver doesn't have to get out. Once he goes it up, it is unlocked. Now the doors will still be locked, the side doors, but that top will come open so he can dump it. So we won't necessarily even have to have a key to them. The only reason we would like to have keys to them or when we do a route audit, we can look and see what's in it.
You said some of them already have locks on them.
Some of them have really tried very hard. There's a few schools that have enclosures, like some of the restaurants with gates, and they'll lock those gates. Daniel McKee keeps theirs locked most of the time. The custodian will go out there and unlock it, throw his stuff away, and lock it back. He does know when the trash truck comes, so he'll try to have it unlocked, because we're pretty much on a schedule. But if you have a breakdown or traffic or whatever, when we're running late, he's already locked that thing back up. He doesn't leave it unlocked for people to get in there. There's a few schools that do that, but a lot of them don't. Some of them took the time to take a log chain and two locks to run across the front of the container, through the handles of the door, across the top, and lock it. Well, when you unlock that and you leave that chain hanging and you go to pick it up, it will wrap around the mirrors on the truck. So if the driver doesn't stop immediately, then you lose the mirrors off the truck.
Was the proposal of 30,000 the type of lock that would open when you tilt it? So it's a nice, logical kind of a system.
Right. And
How
there's
fast
two.
do you think we could recoup that 30,000 savings if we did that?
Well, the other thing that we looked at is some of the places of service, getting to your answer, is that operational cost of dumping air or dumping half-full containers is reducing the level of service or reducing the number of containers, or in some instances actually adding a trash container to where they're close enough on their yardage that if you're going 3 times a week, you can add 1 container and only go twice. So what you're looking at, how many trips, how many miles are you driving, all that kind of stuff. Just the operational cost of operating a truck, we can reduce that. So if the outside dumping went away, we could reduce something. Now, what that number will be, I can't tell you. I don't know.
I'm trying to figure out how you make it painful for the principal, if he's the one in charge, for not following the directions. How do you penalize them?
We don't have that control. That's those.
And I even hate the fact that we have to think in terms of how do we penalize them rather than how do we incentivize them to.
Yeah.
I'm sorry we considered as a penalty.
Well, one of Colonel Davis's.
Have you talked to the school superintendent about talking to them principals?
We've talked about it before. We haven't talked recently. Mr. Odom was on that Laverne tour when we were on it, and talked to him briefly, and then I talked to Gary Clardy, assistant superintendent, later about it, shared some of these numbers with him, and Gary, Mr. Clardy, had a good thought. I don't know how you pull it off, would be looking at our numbers and some guy working on, or some person working on their doctorate over at MTSU in sociology, look and see if there's any trends there. If economics has anything to do with as far as the affluent or unaffluent, those type of people, see if that's got anything to do with it. You know, you got some schools that are a little more well off than others. I don't know if that would be a good paper for anybody to write or not. It's not one that I would want to write. But, you know, we've got to make some change. We cannot continue doing what we're doing. You know, the old saying, you know, you keep putting in the same ingredients. If you put in cornmeal, egg, and buttermilk, and you stir it up and you fry it, you're going to get cornbread every time.
To Mr. Jernigan's point, it may be, we may need to just start with, can we request that the solid waste department just communicate candidly via email or letter, just, or you're going to the school board, can part of that agenda be just a very honest conversation with?
Well, we're supposed to meet with them on the 11th, and the meeting's actually set up for communications. The school system has a better way of communicating with the general public than we do. So we're gonna see if we can tap into some of the resources. Now, we don't want every parent's home email. That's not what we're after. But just trying to get the word out a little bit better on, you know, what's happening.
If we could start with Mr. Odom, encourage him to contemplate how to help facilitate this without being bearers of penalties, but how can we facilitate a moral and ethical
I'd
choice
rather
to
see
do
us
this?
work together. I understand
Yeah, that's
Commissioner
what
Cush's statement, because
I do too.
it's right in line with where I'd like to go, but I was talking to another person today. He said, you know, you can always use a carrot or you use a stick. Apparently your stick's not working. Well, my carrot hasn't been working very well either. So.
For our next meeting, could you run some numbers and kind of guess how long it takes to recover that $30,000 investment for the logs? I really think that's going to be that's not a penalty for the principal.
Mm-hmm.
But the principal won't have to be the one that goes out there and dumps the trash.
Right.
I understand they're busy and the teachers are busy and they're trying to teach and trying to run the school, and I don't want to add this to their list of things that they've got to do. But if we could put a lock on that thing and control how much garbage comes in from the outside, I think that would really help us, and it wouldn't be something that adds more work to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, talking about sociology, I think one of the things is education, and then kind of making it, I'm not so sure it would be a bad idea at some point to publish these differences, not as to which schools are doing well and which schools are not doing well, and let the public see that and let the parents see that, because it's got to go all the way down to the parent level. The principals can't do everything, the teachers can't do everything. It's got to be the school as a whole striving to achieve a better outcome. And if you can get the schools to more or less competing against one another, then, you know, yeah, we can do the stick thing, and that may be what has to happen. But what I'd like to see, I'd like to see you and the mayor and Dr. Odom and school board chairman sit down at a foursome and meet together and talk about, like as Commissioner Dodd said, quite candidly about the problems and the issues and what can be done to resolve.
And it's not just the schools. We've got some other
It's not
county,
just the schools.
we've got
That's
some other
just
county
one
buildings
thing.
that are similar. That's
Right.
not educational.
Then to that meeting would be the sheriff and the courthouse, the mayor. So add those other parties to that conversation.
Yeah.
Is that what, as Mr. Gurley suggested?
Yeah, I think, all the players of the major contributors to this situation, and just, hey, here's a problem we've got to do something about it, or it's going to get out of hand. And that shouldn't be more than 7 or 8 people, really and truly.
Some of the schools that are not, let's say they are below average for their age group. It wouldn't take them a whole lot if they were to improve and get to average. If they were just to get to the average of their peers, then we could change the service day. or we could drop a container. I mean, some of them are that close. Now, the other thing you have to look at really closely is how full is their recycle container. If it's lack of proper recycling is truly the cause, then do they have enough recycled space? If you take this system wide, we'll never get above 29% recycle rate. The way they've got the dumpster set up for this many for trash and this many for recycle, 29% is the best they'll ever get.
I'm not following the math.
29% of the container, of those 276 are recycled containers.
Okay, okay.
So you'll never get any better than 29% unless you add more recycled containers or delete some trash containers.
Okay.
Are we gonna lock those two?
Mm-hmm.
Or are we just locking the top of the container or the
Side,
side doors?
The sides and the top. You got to lock it all.
These side door locks, is that something a female custodian can operate?
It's a master lock that you weld a hasp onto the container and the opposite hasp onto the door, so when it comes together, you slip the hasp in. Or the other way to do it that's cheaper, quicker, easier, is you take a cutting torch and you burn a hole through the track behind the door, and you put the lock in it so it won't slide.
Mm-hmm.
The downside to doing that is the way you put it in, the lock winds up upside down. So if it's a cold, rainy day and it fills up with water, now your lock's frozen.
Always something, Mac.
Is that part that the contractor was gonna install?
What we were going to order was the lock bar and the hasp for each side.
That'd be better, I believe.
And then we would have to special order sets of locks to where your school had a key, his had a key,
Yeah.
and hopefully nobody had the same keys.
Key to lock.
Yeah, all your locks on your containers would be keyed the same. But with
Different than mine.
right, so you'd have to have 60 separate keys.
You say, what was the cost of that?
The 30,000 was for the lock bars, shipped them in and having them put on. That was not counting the locks.
How much of it was the installation?
About $12,000.
Is that something y'all can't do?
We're not set up to do it. The installer is set up to be mobile. He would go to each container and put that lock on right where it's set.
Is it something maybe some of the ag department classes could do for them?
They could do it on their campus,
Yeah,
for their campus,
Yeah.
if they have a mobile welder.
for credit or something.
But, other than that, then how are they gonna move that container to the ag shop and get it back where it goes?
You could
You could.
do, since you got the truck.
So it's gonna be about 40,000 together?
Could be that much.
Oh.
But Commissioner Stevens is right. There is a return on investment for that.
For sure.
I don't know what the time frame is, and that's what he's asking to try to come up with.
You need just gonna have it done, be through it.
See, the solid waste department
It's gonna
does not
save
own
you
a
long
single
run.
dumpster. All the school systems own their own, or the county buildings own their own. So if they need a dumpster, they're required to purchase their own dumpster. We don't buy those.
I'm sorry, that's a proposal, that's a proposal?
We don't buy the dumpsters. Everybody buys their own. And see, when they build a new school, we don't know how many dumpsters they're gonna get until we show up there.
Gotcha.
So can we put those on there if we don't own them?
We can't own the county dumpsters because they're county owned.
But like the school,
They still bought with taxpayer dollars, county taxpayer dollars. So it's owned by the Rutherford County School System.
well, that's the thing, if they don't have our lock on it, then we don't go and service it.
Yeah, but he ought to be wanting to do that to keep, that shouldn't be happening anyway.
Do you know what the fine is for illicit dumping to a county or school dumpster?
Nothing.
Or somebody like sheriff, and them, they gonna tell you they got more stuff covered,
Well, what-
they covered something like that.
What happens is if we go out there and we pull Mike Cush's trash out of that dumpster,
Yeah,
and we get the deputy to come and write you a citation,
yeah.
and they actually go through with the citation, when we go to court, the judge will throw it out because we can't prove you put it in there.
Unless we got a camera there.
Been through that.
Crazy.
So along with our struggles in the future, we're gonna need some much stiffer littering and illegal dumping laws. And I mean some that really, really hurt.
If we would stop the free service for the Murfreesboro, the landfill, that would pay for these lots the first year.
That would make the landfill self-sufficient.
So, yeah.
You could use the money for that, the landfill not, it's all solid waste department money anyway. But if we were to go that route, then when they buy a new dumpster, it'd be required that they purchase it with the lock system on it. You can buy them that way.
Well, that seems to me to be the way to go, so I think next month if you can show us how quickly we will recover that money.
Okay.
That'd be really
Of
good.
course, that'd be an estimate, but it'd be,
And between now and then, just inform them that the commissioners are really interested in doing this.
I would like to see, like I said, I'd like to see it start with the chairman of the school board and the school superintendent and the director of schools and the mayor and the solid waste director get together, start at the schools, and then take it, your next step with some of the other departments. I think if you keep it small, you can have a much more productive conversation, and then come back and tell us, do we need to, get with health and education, and does the commission need to pass some kind of resolution demanding that, or?
the commission's already passed 2 resolutions in the past that the school board will help us recycle. Those have been done twice.
Can you talk to the school board when they have meetings on that?
I have not.
But,
Did you say we could not charge them for picking up their box?
We could, but the problem would be is roughly $400,000 to $500,000 is what it cost me to run the school systems for a year. So if you took that amount of money out of my budget next year and put it into the school board budget to pay me back, we're not going to fix anything.
Yeah.
They've got the money to pay for
tax
it.
rate's gonna stay the same.
You're just moving the puddle.
That's all he's done.
And there's no incentive there for them to make it better. Now, if they were to work the system a little bit and they get better, now they've got $500,000 that they're not going to spend all of it. They can do like the sheriff and move it somewhere else. But I don't think that's the right approach. I think we just, at some point, we're going to have to get to where, Commissioner Dodge, you get this much trash service a week, that's all you get. If you live in the city of Murfreesboro, they come by and pick up your trash can, that's all they pick up, isn't it? So what happens
You
if
live
you...
in Metro, it's just
So what happens if you have more? You have to go to the convenience center, you have to go do something with it yourself.
Well, they're gonna do something with it. If you ain't got somewhere to put it, they throw it on the side of the road.
And that's the reason we need a much
I
different
seen-
laws.
I seen a bunch the other day.
You know, in the age of everybody having one of these with them, if we would perhaps do a piece in the paper or public outcry to report illicit dumping, and I mean, if we could pop a couple of people with a $300 or $400 fine,
No, I'm talking about,
that
it needs to be
makes-
$1,000 fine, and it needs to be, you pick up the trash on the side of the road for 40 hours in the same week,
yeah,
and we hold your vehicle that you were using until you get finished paying us and do the fine.
I like it.
Make it hurt, and then publicize it, and I guarantee you Commissioner Dodd won't do that again.
No, you'll think twice about dumping your Christmas
I
tree.
won't do it the first time.
Now, will that stop everybody? No.
But it may slow it down.
The thing that hurts us as far as litter pickup is, yeah, we do have some illegal dumping, but you just ride down the road and look at what we're picking up. It's beverage containers and food boxes. It's what's flying out of the window of a vehicle. It's not what's flying out of the back of a garbage truck or a pickup truck.
Right.
Yeah, you see the workhouse guys picking every day. They wouldn't pick it up like they do, it would be something.
We sent our litter crew to Florence Road, and they started at Old Nashville Highway and loaded the trailer before they got to the 3-way stop. And didn't get it all. There was some furniture and stuff they had to leave behind. All they got was the trash. We'll have to go back tomorrow and get the rest of it.
Mac, I'll say, and I've said this in other meetings, you've got a bunch of folks on this committee that will do whatever we can to help you.
And I appreciate that.
Just bring us some ideas and tell us how to get them enacted. And if whoever we need to chat with, we'll chat with. And, you know, I didn't run for this job to make friends, so I'm okay with telling people straight up that these things are going to change and these are the consequences. So.
Well, it's like the email you sent, the lady had an issue, and I answered back, this is how we actually do it. There was some stuff in there that we don't publicize, and but I told you.
Right, which
you know,
made all perfect sense when I read it. Yeah.
You know, so if you call us that there's litter on the side of the road, we may not get it today, but there's reasons why we don't. Not because we don't want to.
Right. Just the change of behavior will help. And that's not something that we're taxing people. That's not something we're penalizing financially. We're just asking them to do the right thing with their trash. And I think we can all get behind that and yell it from the mountaintop. So bring us some ideas, and man, I'll go to bat for you.
Okay. Any other questions on the convenience center or the landfill stuff? This is a different thing here.
We need to approve it then.
Might want to
All right,
approve
let's
it.
approve.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, what do you got?
I started to email this to y'all, but when it was emailed to me, I thought, you can't tell anything about it because it's too small. So I went over to our engineering department and I talked to Katie and told her what I was trying to do. Yes. And that afternoon she had this for me. The mayor and I have been discussing for quite some time that we need a fleet maintenance building. And it has been brought up in the past that if we do a fleet maintenance building, it needs to be done at the landfill site. And he said, you know, so that's one thing you're going to have to show. Why is it not a good idea to put it at our landfill? So this blue line represents the Rutherford County landfill. This is Middle Point landfill. This is the Matthews property that they're taking the dirt off of. So our only neighbors, Middle Point landfill, Middle Point property, and the river. The river, as you see here, shows the floodplain for the river. So I wanted to show that floodplain. As you enter going up Landfill Road, you'd be coming in this direction. When you get to our property line, the first thing you're going to see on the right is a sediment pond. And then this area below where the hill starts used to be a permitted bale field. The reason I say used to be is they robbed the dirt out of it. Therefore, it's not the same conditions, so the permit's no longer active. Also in here, this is our container lot. This is where we park all of our full open tops when we pull them on the weekends. There's two monitor wells down here, one for gas and one for water. And then you start the slope. And then once you get into the gate, this red line represents roughly the garbage part of the old closed landfill. This orange line represents where we put the emergency tornado debris. Another sediment pond, another sediment pond. The pink line is our burn area. The light color blue line is our cemetery. They're the quietest neighbors we've ever had. The green line is the footprint for the C&D site. Notice I say footprint. You can see the dirt here. This is roughly where the C&D material is. Footprint goes this size. Another sediment pond. This area over here, we're not sure what's been put there in the past. That's one of those things you probably want to just leave alone. So if we were to build a facility, here is where you'd probably put it. So this is, where's the legend down here somewhere? Get under that.
Oh, here we go. It's 200 feet. I'm sorry, Mike.
There you go.
1 inch is 200.
1 inch equals 200 feet. So if you do roughly 400 feet wide and 1,000 feet long, was that 11, 12 acres or so? And you can get a little bit more. So you got maybe 20 acres in this area that you could do something with, but it's going to take some excavation to do that. If we choose in our future to do a waste to energy project, that's where that would need to go. to where you would set up to where you do your recycling, you do your grinding, you do all your waste energy stuff. As you did that, if we reclaimed the landfill, then you generate some more space.
I have one question.
Mhm.
Why would we want to put this facility at the landfill if the landfill is going to close in 10 to 12 years, and hopefully the facility that we build is going to last longer than 10 to 12 years? Why would we want to put it there?
This facility closes in 10 to 12 years.
The landfill don't, just.
Middle Point facility.
Okay.
This is our county facility.
This is going to stay open for longer.
This part of it in the red has been closed since 1994.
That's what I thought.
This part of it.
That's the only part. That
That's the only part of it now, and we've talked in the past, possibility if we go for an expansion. Well, if you're gonna go for an expansion, then you're gonna expand this way, you may dig some of this up, or you probably take down the shop and move this way toward the cemetery. But I show you all that to say that I don't think a fleet maintenance facility should be built on this piece of property. The mayor and I have been looking for quite some time, and we've got some properties in mind, so we're probably going to go to property management next time they meet and seek permission to start actively negotiating for some property.
What kind of size property do you think you need that would be adequate?
10 to 20 acres.
Would that have to be, can that be gravelled, or would we have to have asphalt paving on that?
Both. The location that I have in mind would do multi-purpose. It'd be a fleet maintenance facility. It'd also be the solid waste facility, separate building, and parking for our vehicles, and then possibly a convenience center. But that's the reason I had the map done, is to let you see that it's really, on this site, it's really not a good place to build a fleet maintenance facility. And it's not really the right geographical location either.
I was going to say, just getting in and out of here
Yeah.
is supposed to be a pain.
Well, the address for our building is 6,000 Landfill Road. We could be just as easily be number one. We're the only building on the road.
Vincent, early on, our first meeting, we discussed raising elevations to allow more product to be wasted. Does that include the closed part, or that closed part cannot be, can it be elevated and more put in?
You can.
Okay. That's
Now,
just
of course,
a
you're gonna have to go through and do some permit changes and all that kind of stuff.
No, you said earlier it could be complicated, but now that we have a visual, I just want to go back
But
to that.
if we were to, and of course, this is in Commissioner Piercy's district, they've had a landfill for a long time, started with the Old County landfill, and I'm sure they're tired of it. But as far as trying to get a site permitted in the county, that was probably going to be the easiest place to go to get a permit, because there's already existing permits.
Were there not some gossip about the neighbors interested in maybe taking that over?
We've talked to them in the past about that idea, and they've not been receptive. The timing isn't right. They've still got 10 to 12 years here. Supposedly, and it did happen, Middle Point Landfill did some core drilling on Rutherford County landfill property years and years ago, just to see how deep the trash is. I've never seen those results. I don't know if the county actually has them, but Middle Point does. Supposedly the trash in the Rutherford County landfill at the deepest point is only 70 feet deep. So there's a lot of good clay underneath the trash that can be used. My thought process is, if we go through with a waste of energy, some type of waste reduction stuff, we start digging up this old landfill. The mayor and I have talked about it, and he said, why would you want to dig it up? You don't know what's there. That's true. But I would rather know what's there, dig it up and find it, than not to know. When the folks in Georgia did their landfill that was similar to ours, they were geared up for hazardous waste, and they didn't find any. You know, does that mean we're not going to find any? No, it doesn't. We may. But if it's there, go ahead and get it out and send it where it needs to go. Then you reclaim this piece of property. Joey Smith, solid waste director for the city, asked me to come up with some numbers, and I haven't come up with them yet, but if we were to reclaim that and we had a waste of energy facility to take care of our trash, how many years of garbage would we have? I don't have a clue. A bunch. A long, long time.
I didn't bring my notes with me, so that's my bad. Didn't you say a couple of meetings ago that if we were to reclaim some of that, that for whatever reason, the number 75% of what's in there now could be recycled?
The landfill in Georgia that is similar to ours, when they dug that up and reclaimed it, 30% of it was reburied as trash.
Okay.
The other 70% was either recycled or dirt.
Wow, okay.
Now, you know, Middle Point needs dirt, so if you dig up the dirt, would you sell it to them? Well, you could. But if you're actually going to run a landfill with it, you're probably going to need it in the future.
Yeah.
So that you probably wouldn't want to go sell it. You want to hang on to it.
Yeah. Put it back on the other property.
Mm-hmm.
Dirt in that area is in a limited supply.
Yeah.
Very limited.
And they're going to have a harder and harder time finding it by the time they get ready to close.
Yeah.
Now, to go back to your question, does that mean they won't make a run to try to get this just for the dirt under it? That's a possibility.
How old is our landfill?
It was closed in 1994.
So how many years did it operate? How many years of trash
Early
is buried in
early 70s.
early 70s? They're talking 45 years of trash. No, you said 94.
70s to
24
94. Yeah, about 20 to 25 years.
Does anybody have any speculation of how it will act in 25 more years if it's not dug up?
The trash within it will keep decomposing, and we'll keep having settling issues, and we'll have to go back and readdress the drainage to correct that, to make it drain correctly. That'll be a constant thing that you'll have to do with any old landfill. It's still generating methane gas. You know, part of the issues that we've had in the past, everybody thought we had a leachate problem. Now we've gone through all the testing and done the things that TDEC has asked us to do. We don't have a leachate problem. We have a gas migration problem. And they're still surprised that we still have gas issues. When you do a landfill just like this, you see this is what they call the bow tie. Because when you look at it, it looks like a bow tie. But the way a landfill should operate, you go in there today, you start burying your trash. When you get finished at the end of the day, you take your dirt and you cover it up. When you go back in there in the morning, you take that dirt, you rake it off, you get back to the trash, you start burying trash. That way your trash is continuous. Mm-hmm. What happens in every landfill is they don't reach that dirt off and they put trash on top of it. Now you got little pockets of trash everywhere. And that's what we have. So what they're doing is it's generating a little leachate and it's generated methane gas and looking for a place to go. And once it finds that outlet, then it goes and it'll run into another place that's got the same issue. So it takes years for it to go where it needs to go. They think we have gas coming from our site over on their site. I'm not sure that's true. They run a vacuum on their site. So if ours is coming over, my contention is they're sucking it.
They're pulling it.
Okay.
That's all you got, Matt?
Yes, sir. I just want, because the mayor and I talked about it, he said, I guess we need to go to property management. I said, well, we need to go to Public Works, just let them know that that's the direction we want to head before we do that. Any other questions about trying to do a fleet maintenance facility?
Apparently you're not in favor of it, not that location.
Not in that location, sir. Now, in our current budget, there's 2 line items in the solid waste budget to work on trucks. The 2 line items combined is $200,000, $130,000 in one, $70,000 in the other. This year when we started, we already had a mechanic hired as a driver. We moved in the mechanic position, started having him working on trucks. So if you take the amount of money that we paid him for the first 6 months, plus what Mack and Nashville has done for us, plus the part that we bought, we spent $60,000. So we're on track to spend $120,000 working on our own stuff instead of $200,000.
Bless you.
So that's my pitch for having a fleet maintenance facility. And it'd be countywide. It wouldn't just be for solid waste, it'd be for everybody.
we're bringing in trash from lots of different counties, correct?
We are not, Middle Point is.
Middle Point is, okay. Okay.
Anybody got any other questions? Dan?
Thanks for all the info.
Thank y'all.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Mimi.
Was that all of you?
No, I haven't met you.
So when you gonna go to Rotary Club?
April the 14th.
Oh, he adjourned? He did adjourn? Adjourned.
It's over when you go up.
Wake up,
I'm
Sam.
hungry.
Hungry?
Supper time. I'm
You made me hungry.
serious.